imagine for a second, right, that you're standing in front of a brand new, just absolutely stunning skyscraper. We're talking floor-to-ceiling glass, catching the sunlight, gorgeous architectural
Oh,
lines.
yeah, like one of those buildings that just dominates the skyline?
Exactly.
Yeah.
From the street, it looks like $1 billion investment. But then, you look down at your feet and the ground is literally squishing. It's bubbling.
Hmm?
Because this beautiful, shiny tower, it was built directly on top of a swamp.
Right, so it looks incredible from a distance. But the moment any real pressure is applied,
Yeah.
like a storm or a shift in the wind, or honestly just the sheer weight of its own occupants over time, the entire structure is going to sink.
Keep going down.
Yeah, I mean, the brass doorknobs might be polished, but the building is doomed.
Well, welcome to the RJ Blueprint. And for those just joining us, RAJ stands for Restoring Autonomy and Justice.
That's right.
Our mission in this deep dive is to take a really hard look at the foundations you're building in your own professional life.
Hmm.
Because we're not here for, passive learning.
Definitely not.
We want to take these insights and translate them into tangible, real-world economic impact for you. Because frankly, if you don't get the foundation right, all that energy you spend building upward, it's just burning capital.
And burning out your teams, too. I mean, nobody wants to work on a sinking ship.
Exactly. Real quick, before we wade into the mud here, I note that this deep dive is powered by Alpha Dio and Future of Work.
Two amazing communities.
Truly.
Yeah.
So today we are tackling this massive conflict that I guarantee every single professional, developer, and creator listening right now wrestles with on a daily basis.
Oh, without a doubt.
We're exploring the tension between building like an architect versus falling into what we call the ship fast trap.
Which is arguably the most pervasive piece of advice floating around modern work culture today.
Okay, let's unpack this because I'll actually play devil's advocate right out of the gate here.
Go for it.
Because move fast and break things isn't just some catchy slogan, right? It's basically the religion of Silicon Valley.
It really is.
So if I'm an engineer or a creator and I spend, say, 6 months architecting the perfect, pristine system, my competitor is just going to ship a messy version in 6 weeks and completely steal my market share. So isn't shipping fast just a basic survival requirement today?
Well, okay, speed is a requirement for survival, yes. The issue isn't with the word fast. The issue is the fundamental misunderstanding of what the word ship actually entails in that context.
How do you mean?
Over the last decade or so, ship fast has been warped. It's turned into this justification for building carelessly.
Right.
People interpret it as an excuse to just skip the blueprint phase entirely, grab a hammer and start swinging, just so they can tell they're bored they launched an MVP.
The classic minimum viable product that is actually just a broken product.
Exactly. Just totally broken. But let's look at the historical evidence from the actual tech giants that championed this philosophy.
Okay, let's look at them.
If you go back and look at the early days of Facebook or the original launch of WhatsApp,
Oh, man, they were rough.
right? They weren't beautiful. Nobody remembers early Facebook as a masterclass in UI design.
No, it was just clunky blue text on a white background. It looked like a directory.
Exactly. And WhatsApp was incredibly basic, too, essentially just a raw utility. But here is the crucial distinction. They weren't polished, but they were not structurally broken.
Oh, okay.
They succeeded because the underlying mechanics were rock solid.
I want to dig into that WhatsApp example because it perfectly illustrates the difference between front-end polish and back-end architecture. The sources point out that WhatsApp didn't waste time making a gorgeous interface, right?
Right.
But they chose to build their back-end using Erlang. And for those who aren't developers, Erlang is a programming language originally built by Ericsson for telephonic switches.
Which is fascinating.
It is. It's literally designed to handle massive, concurrent, real-time communications without crashing.
And that right there is building like an architect.
Yeah.
They shipped a fast, ugly UI, sure, but they built the foundation on a language specifically designed for the exact scale they intended to reach.
They knew what they were doing.
Right. They didn't just throw together a messy Python script and hope it held up when 1 million people logged on. They moved fast on the surface, but they moved deliberately in the bedrock.
But realizing that effort on the surface doesn't equal strategic stability in the bedrock, that's only half the battle, right?
Yeah, unfortunately.
Because we see professionals in literally every industry spending weeks obsessing over the color scheme of a slide deck.
Oh, the endless slide deck revisions.
Right. Or refactoring a UI component for an app while the underlying data pipeline or the core business strategy is just fundamentally bottlenecked. Why do we always gravitate toward that surface level work?
Well, because surface level work is psychologically safe.
Safe.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. It is much easier to paint a wall than it is to calculate load-bearing physics.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
And this brings us to a concept from the sources that completely changes how we visualize the life cycle of a healthy project.
Yeah.
We need to move away from the skyscraper for a minute and look at the organic process of building.
The tree metaphor.
Exactly. The tree
I
metaphor.
love this part. So the sources break this down into 3 stages. First, you have planting, and this is your initial idea, the blueprint, the core strategy. It's the seed, right?
Right, the seed.
Second, you have watering. This is your daily effort, the iteration, the sprints, the act of clearing JIRA tickets or, checking tasks off your list.
The day-to-day grind.
Yeah. And finally, growing, the execution and the actual output. So planting, watering, growing.
What's fascinating here is that the trap always lies in the watering stage.
How so?
Because we've been conditioned by modern corporate incentive structures to equate sheer effort with guaranteed success.
Oh, absolutely.
The psychological trap is thinking, if I just work harder, if I log more hours, if I water this patch of dirt twice as much as the next developer, the project will succeed.
We just glorify the hustle.
We really do.
Yeah.
But here is the harsh reality. If the seed itself is bad-like, if you planted a pebble or an invasive weed instead of an oak tree, you cannot outwater it.
You're just making mud.
Exactly. No amount of effort will turn a fundamentally flawed plan into a scalable success.
Okay, I am going to challenge that metaphor slightly.
Go for it.
Because in the real world, standing around staring at a seed just looks like laziness.
It does.
Right. Like, if I'm a product manager and my team is just evaluating the structure, stakeholders start asking why the burn down chart isn't moving.
Right. Where's the velocity?
Exactly. The dopamine hit of clearing tickets is real because it signals to the company that we are working.
But see, that dopamine hit is exactly what masks the decay of a bad root system. It's what we call strategic debt.
Okay, wait, strategic debt, because we talk a lot about technical debt in software, right? Taking shortcuts to get a feature out the door, knowing you have to clean up the code later.
Right, but strategic debt is worse.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Strategic debt is effectively watering a dead seed because you are too afraid to tell management that the patch of dirt is barren.
Oh, wow.
You are generating operational motion, but you have zero strategic velocity.
Operational motion versus strategic velocity. That is a massive distinction.
If everything.
It's like you can be running 100 miles an hour on a treadmill or sweating, burning calories, but you aren't actually getting closer to a destination.
You're just exhausted.
Yeah. So to you, the listener, we have to ask, are you just going through the motions right now? Are you furiously checking off a task list every day just to feel productive when in reality you're pouring water on a pebble?
It's a tough question to ask yourself.
Yeah.
And the friction you mentioned earlier, the pressure from stakeholders to just start building, that's the hardest part to overcome.
For sure.
But effort is not a substitute for architectural strategy. If you know that a bad seed ruins the whole tree, and you know you can't outwater a swamp, you have to force what I call the structural pause.
The structural pause. Okay, but how do you actually force that pause without triggering the stakeholders who just want to see code pushed or, campaigns launched?
By framing the pause not as a delay, but as risk mitigation.
Speaking their language.
Exactly. Before you rush to build the monolithic architecture, before you launch the global campaign, you pause and evaluate the structure using 3 non-negotiable questions from the blueprint.
I want to spend some significant time on these because applying them in the real world is where the friction really happens.
It is.
The 3 questions are, number 1, can this scale? Number 2, can I expand this easily? And number 3, does this make sense beyond today?
Let's workshop the first one. Can this scale?
Let's do it.
Why is this non-negotiable? Because eventually, if you do your job right, growth will happen.
Which is the goal.
Right. Exactly. And growth is the ultimate stress test for your foundation. It's the storm hitting the skyscraper.
Okay, I'm going to push back hard here, leveraging a very famous startup philosophy.
I think I know where you're going.
Y Combinator notoriously tells founders to do things that don't scale.
Yes, they do.
The argument is that if you spend 3 months building a system to handle 1 million concurrent users, but you haven't even validated if 10 people want to buy your product, you have committed the cardinal sin of premature optimization.
Right.
And Donald Knuth famously said, premature optimization is the root of all evil. So doesn't asking, can this scale, kind of contradict the entire lean startup methodology.
That is the most common misinterpretation of both Knuth and Y Combinator.
Really? Okay, break that down for us.
When Paul Graham says do things that don't scale,
Hmm.
he is talking about customer acquisition, initial user experience.
Oh, I see.
He means manually onboarding your first 50 users or personally emailing every single person who churns. He does not mean hard-coding your database logic so tightly that transitioning from a monolith to microservices later will take 18 months and $5 million.
Wow, that is a phenomenal distinction.
Right. And regarding Donald Knuth, when he warned against premature optimization, he was talking about micro-optimizing code loops at the expense of readability before you even know where the performance bottlenecks are.
He wasn't talking about system architecture.
Exactly. He was not giving developers a free pass to just ignore system architecture altogether.
Yeah.
Asking, can this scale, doesn't mean you have to build the entire global infrastructure on day one.
Right.
It just means you don't build yourself into a corner that requires tearing down the entire house just to add a second floor.
Let's make that really concrete for the listener. Say a startup decides to, ship fast. They build their entire application, user authentication, payment processing, content delivery, inventory management, all as one massive, tightly coupled monolithic code base.
A classic scenario.
Yeah.
Happens all the time.
And for the first year, it works beautifully, right? It was fast to deploy, the seed is growing, but then they hit scale. User load spikes dramatically.
And suddenly, the whole system grinds to a halt.
Exactly. The payment processor is failing because the content delivery module is eating up all the server memory.
Right.
Because everything is so tightly tangled together in one monolith, they can't just scale the content delivery part. They have to scale the entire massive application, which costs an absolute fortune in AWS fees.
Precisely. And if they had asked, can this scale? During the structural pause, they wouldn't have necessarily built 50 independent microservices on day one.
Because that would be over-engineering.
Exactly. But they would have established clear domain boundaries within their code. They would have built a modular monolith so that when the time came, extracting the payment processor into its own scalable service wouldn't require untangling a million lines of spaghetti code.
Which flows perfectly into the second question. Can I expand this easily?
Modularity.
Right. It's about modularity. If I need to bolt on a new feature, do I have to rewrite the core logic?
Exactly. And let's look beyond software for a second.
Yep.
Say you are building a system to track client data for a consulting business. You decide to just ship fast, so you create a massive, unorganized spreadsheet where every time a client emails you, a new column is added just totally haphazardly.
Oh man, we have all inherited that spreadsheet.
It's the worst.
It takes 2 minutes to set up, but it is an absolute nightmare to expand. If I suddenly want to, say, run a script to automate billing based on the data in that spreadsheet, I can't.
No, because the data isn't structured. The seed was flawed.
Right.
Building like an architect means realizing that expansion is inevitable. You don't need to build a whole city, but you need to build the grid so you can plug things in later.
That makes total sense.
Early Facebook and WhatsApp shared this trait. The code was structured in a way that allowed engineers to bolt on new features without tearing down the original walls.
So how do we balance this with the third question? Does this make sense beyond today? Because this is the one that really challenges the instant gratification of modern work.
It really does. How do you interpret beyond today in the context of, daily decision-making?
I look at it through the lens of a literal architect designing a residential home.
Okay, I like that.
When they are drawing up the blueprint, they aren't just thinking, will this roof keep the rain off the client's head this afternoon?
Right.
They're pulling historical climate data. They're asking, will this roof pitch hold up when a freak blizzard dumps 3 feet of snow on it next February?
They're looking ahead.
Exactly. They're absorbing the cost of a slightly more complex design today to avoid a catastrophic collapse tomorrow.
Anticipating future constraints. That is the essence of generating true economic impact.
Yes.
You look at your current project and say, sure, this manual workaround or this messy code saves my team an hour this week. But will it cost us 40 hours a month from now when we have to untangle it during a high-traffic launch?
And it requires an enormous amount of discipline to tolerate the discomfort of a slower start.
So much discipline.
Because it objectively takes longer to excavate the mud and lay a reinforced concrete foundation than it does to just pitch a tent in the swamp.
But the tent is going to blow away the second the wind changes.
Exactly.
And if you are constantly pitching tents, having them blow away and pitching them again, you are exhausting your resources.
You're burning out.
The economic impact we talked about at the beginning is entirely dependent on escaping that cycle.
Mm.
The professionals who generate massive value are the ones who build systems that compound over time.
Systems that actually leverage growth.
Right. They don't just survive growth, they leverage it. They don't
Mhm.
fear scale, they design for it from day one.
So tying this all back to the core conflict, we are not telling you to succumb to analysis paralysis.
No, definitely not.
We aren't saying you should lock yourself in a room for 2 years staring at a blueprint while the market just passes you by.
No. You
Yeah.
still need to move fast. You still need to get your work out into the world, test it against reality, and gather data.
Yes, move fast.
Yeah.
Yes, get your work out there. But, and this is the distinction that separates the amateurs from the architects, think deeper about the bedrock.
Wow.
Before you start pouring all your energy, all your sprints, and all your late nights into the watering stage, ask yourself, are you building something with structural integrity that can organically scale? Or are you just creating something brittle that will shatter the second it gets put under pressure?
You have to find that ultimate balance between the speed of execution on the surface and the integrity of the architecture below ground.
It is the stark difference between generating strategic velocity and just spinning your wheels in operational motion.
Perfectly said.
As we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought, something to really mull over as you go back to your desk or your code editor or wherever it is you do your building.
Take a hard look at the project you are spending the most time watering right now. The one that is consuming the majority of your daily effort and bandwidth.
Okay.
I want you to imagine a scenario where that project suddenly succeeds beyond your wildest expectations. It grows 10x overnight. 50 clients suddenly becomes 500. 100 concurrent users spikes to 10,000.
The dream scenario.
Right. But if that happened tomorrow morning, would your current foundation actually hold that weight up? Or would the whole thing immediately collapse?
That is a chilling scenario to visualize, honestly.
It is.
But it is the exact stress test your systems need. Because if the honest answer is collapse, it is time to put down the watering can and pick up the blueprint. Make the structural pause.
Fix the seed now so you aren't forced to do it in the middle of a storm.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Make sure to plant the right seeds today so you don't have to tear down your entire structure tomorrow.
Yeah.
We want you building skyscrapers on solid bedrock, not sinking into the swamp.
Absolutely.
To keep upgrading your blueprints, make sure you go follow Only Arnarash, check out Alpha DAO, and connect with Future of Work Academy for more insights on building scalable, lasting success. You've been listening to the RAJ Blueprint. Keep building like an architect, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.